champions. In fact, as we take a look at the tail of the tape tonight, you see Norris really has the edge in experience, although Jirov had an extensive amateur career as well. Big advantage in height for Jirov. He carries just about 10 more pounds, 3 inches in reach. You take a look at that, those ages. Now let's go to Lou Moret for the instructions.
Right here, okay, this is good there. Shake hands and wait the bell. Good luck.
All right, here's the fight. The rules will be the rules for the fight tonight. There's no 3 knockdown rule, no standing 8 count. Fighter can be saved by the bell in the last round only. The referee or the doctor can stop the fight, and if a fight is stopped due to a headbutt, we'll go to the cards from the 4th round on. So we're ready for action. Vassiliy Jirov, and as always, his tiger striped trunks, and Orlin Norris in the black trunks. Norris fought not too long ago, just actually less than 2 months ago. He fought a big Polish heavyweight by the name of Stoznowski, and he lost a decision to Stoznowski, although Norris fought very well for a few rounds in that fight and had the early lead, but he wilted. And the question is, will he wilt tonight under the pressure of Vassiliy Jirov and with this heat?
And the pressure of the heat, I tell you, the heat is just draining. It makes you tired, physically tired, even before the fight starts. Your combinations don't work as fast. You're lethargic in there. You've got to replenish yourself between rounds with plenty of water. And it's really important. You know, I'm looking at Norris, too. He's coming in this fight without breaking a sweat. And we're in this kind of heat. He should be boiling with sweat. He's a pro fighter. He's been around boxing his whole life.
Sean, you think the fighters will try to marshal their energy? They're off to kind of a bit of a slow start here, just probing.
Absolutely. And they both...
No knockdown.
So when you fight in a left-hander, see how close their front feet are? You're constantly stepping on the toe of your opponent, or he's stepping on your toe. And front feet just got mixed up.
Jirov is always moving in. He will pick up the action. The one thing about Jirov, it seems like almost round to round in his fights, he gets busier and busier and busier as the fight wears on.
And that is why he's an exciting fighter. He moves forward and he throws that jab. Moving in, he throws that jab. It's an offensive weapon for him. Many fighters use that as defense, but he uses it for offense. And he's a good combination puncher. You know, he punches well to the body. He does a lot of things really good.
Orlin Norris in the black trunks, off to a cautious start, trying to set some traps here for Jirov if he can. It was something that James Toney was able to do so successfully against Jirov in their fight. Set traps, be patient, look for those mistakes.
And Orlin Norris would love to do that same thing with Vassiliy Jirov tonight, hoping that he's catching Jirov at a perfect time. Jirov said his style today, he's more confident and he's faster as a heavyweight coming up from a cruiserweight division. Orlin Norris says in the ring, I don't do stupid stuff anymore. I focus on my career. I focus on boxing, no distractions. Says his best punch is the right cross, and that's a punch that left-handers are vulnerable for. Both of them just trying to lay their fight plan here. In this kind of heat, too, you have to pace yourself. You have to develop your plan early in these fights. Right hand, a good movement from Norris.
All right, final seconds of a cautious first round. Remember, this one is scheduled for 8. These two guys are accustomed to going 10 and 12. And there's the bell, ending round number 1. Here in Lemoore, Sean O'Grady, I'm Rich Murata ringside, and also working with us, Jay Glazer, who's around ringside as well. Jay?
Well, Sean, you've already talked about the heat. James Toney's talked about the heat. That is the #1 factor on tonight's card. If I'm one of these fighters, I have a sense of urgency to end this early. The longer it goes, the longer you can have a chance of cramping, you weaken. But it's odd that every fighter we talked to claimed it won't be a problem. They've all trained in oppressive heat, but I think Jirov had the best when he said, you know what, it's mind over matter. You cannot let the heat get in your mind. We can control it up here. I don't know what he's talking about because it is hot out here.
It's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. And mind your P's and Q's in a fight of this nature because the elements are there. Sometimes it's not just your opponent that you have to face, it's the elements, like here.
Jirov standing up between rounds.
That's what Tigers do.
Second round, heavyweight battle, Vassiliy Jirov Facing the camera with his back to you, Orlin Norris, former cruiserweight champ. Now living in Lubbock, Texas. Of course, a brother of a really former terrific champion, world champion, Terry Norris. Now Jirov trying to get that jab to work. And again, Norris here trying to set some traps for Jirov if he can. Back to the ropes. What can he do with his back to the ropes, hands up high like that, Sean?
Well, he's one of those fighters that's wily in the ring. He can bounce off those ropes. He can sometimes sit on those ropes and relax, and you take a break on those ropes. You kind of bounce off them and use a little bit more force in your punch. But see him right there with his back toward the sun. As a fighter, and a fighter with great experience like Orlin Norris, you're taught to remember to keep the sun on your back. That way your opponent is facing the sun. Sometimes it will blind him where you're throwing a punch. So you use that to your advantage.
Greatest of all time in that regard was Jack Johnson, who actually used to be able to maneuver his opponents right into the sun so that they were facing it the whole fight.
Did you ever call any of his fights?
Yeah, just the last two, of course. Yeah.
Yes. There you go.
Don't forget, we're here not only for this bout, but also for Sam Solomon, the #1 IBF middleweight contender, and he'll be in action against Fernando Zuniga. That should be a good one coming up a little bit later on.
Oh yeah, really looking forward to that, because Sam really has to make an impression. He's got to make a statement tonight, and he is fun to watch. Just a go-get-'em fighter. Fights with a lot of fun, a lot of enthusiasm.
Norris not nearly as active as he was in the first couple of rounds against the Polish heavyweight. I talked to you about Albert Sosnowski in his last fight, which he lost the decision. And he says he thought he used up a little too much energy in that one early, because he was out in front early, but then he seemed to hit the wall.
Well, he said about in the 6th round, the 5th to 6th round, he really went for the KO, and he kind of burned himself out in that fight. Tonight he's going to take his time, and you can see him here in this first round. He is pacing himself nicely, and also he does some things that are so great as a fighter. Watch, he moves just enough to take the power out of the punch. See, he doesn't waste energy in there. He moves just a little bit. These little small movements that decrease the power are so vital.
Jirov punching with far less than his usual punch output. You can even ask James Toney that this guy throws a lot of punches. I mean, he was there until Toney, as usual, dissected him in the late rounds. But he was throwing a lot of punches at James in that fight. Now he finally opens up with Norris's back to the ropes, and he opens up with a body attack. And here comes Jirov now, beginning to pile up the punches. And Norris is going to have to get something started here offensively.
Facing the sun, though. Norris got his back to the sun. Oh, downstairs to the body. Oh, those hurt. Those hurt.
Jirov
especially in this kind of heat. Your legs cramp up. You get those body shots, just take everything out of you.
Coming to the end of round 2, Jirov beginning to take command. Sam Solomon in a full warm-up now as we get ready for our second fight a little bit later on with the #1 middleweight contender taking on Fernando Zuniga. Meantime, we got one that started to heat up in round number 2 in the last 30 seconds. That's when Vassiliy Jirov, who you see in those tiger stripe trunks of his, began to put his punches together, and something he is excellent at.
And to the body. That extremely, extremely important in a fight of this nature. With this fight only being 8 rounds, I would have thought that they both would have started earlier in this fight.
Norris now beginning to press forward rather than back off and try to lure Jirov into mistakes. I think he found out in the last half minute of that last round that wasn't working, so now he's coming forward, trying to push Jirov back.
Changing his style, yeah.
Feeling that, maybe Jirov won't fight as well going backwards.
Also, he's testing some things. Also, you try to hide your body seam, try to pull that body back. Those body shots hurt. They hurt more than headshots. Headshots, you just go to sleep. You hit in the body, it smarts. So he's trying to tuck that body back, pull it back away from your opponent. Don't give him that target. When you're standing up straight or even laying on the ropes, you give your opponent your body punch.
You must have fought in some of this kind of heat on some of those Oklahoma days and nights, did you not, coming up?
I did. Not outside. I never fought outside, really? But I trained outside a lot. And yeah, it's you're so focused.
And Norris opens up for the first time.
You're so focused on the fight that you're not even worrying about the heat.
Got a rise out of the crowd there. He made Jirov give ground. That was my question, if it was actually on a fighter's mind.
Not at all. The heat's not going to hit you. Well, it does indirectly, and it will later in this fight. But your main focus is on that guy right in front of you.
Really have a wonderful little weather device here that tells us right now it's 107 degrees on that ring mat.
I think it's down 108 earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, it's cool.
Cooling off. Must be the wind chill.
Yeah, hand me my coat, will you? Good jab. Good jab, Norris. Orlin has a terrific jab. It's hard to jab with a southpaw fighter because their right hand sits in your way.
What do you do with that, Sean? I mean, do you continue to try to jab? Or do you change the strategy of the way, the technique of the way you throw it or where you throw it?
Sometimes you can jab with the southpaw. Other times, there are trainers that just say to their fighters, forget the jab. Just throw the straight right hand with a real wide left hook. Well, there's a wide punch blocked by Norris. Jirov wants to throw those hard shots. Just stand still. Orlin.
Norris evading a lot of the punches to the head, but those ones to the body have been damaging by Jirov.
Oh, yeah. Well, they accumulate. You know, you shake off the punches to the head. Just clear the cobwebs, not the body.
It's a little bit better round here for Orlin Norris as round 3 comes to a close.
What's under the...
This is round 4 heavyweight battle in Lemoore, California. Vassiliy Jirov, former cruiserweight champion, taking on Orlin Norris, who's been around, it seems like, forever, Sean.
And these two may start out as heavyweights but end up as lightweights as this fight continues. They are sweating profusely for good reason.
Jirov, the 1996 Olympic gold medalist in the light heavyweight division in Atlanta. Was a great fighter there. In fact, he was voted boxer of the Olympics there. One of the fighters he beat on the way to the championship was Julio Gonzalez, who later went on to fight a great fight with Roy Jones and then eventually win the light heavyweight championship of the world himself.
You get the Val Baker Award for best fighter in the Olympics.
All right, let's go over to Jay Glazer now, find out what's going on in the corner of Vassiliy Jirov. Jay?
Oh, Rich, earlier today, Orlin Norris said against Jirov what he wanted to do is wait until Jirov got over-aggressive and then counterpunch. You saw that he stung him in the last round. Well, after that round, Jirov's corner said to him, hey, after you throw a combination, you've got to make sure you jab because he's going to get in there with those counterpunches that plays right into Orlin Norris's game plan.
All right, Jay, thanks. And Sean, I noticed that, again, Jirov stood up between rounds. A few fighters do this, not many. He stood up between all the rounds so far today. What do you think of that?
If you want to stand up, stand up. If you want to sit down, that's fine. I wanted to use every second of the between rounds to my advantage. That's why I always set. But if you want to stand up, I don't think it matters one way or another. Some fighters think that you get more air if you're standing up and breathing, but it doesn't matter.
George Foreman used to stand up between rounds. He used to say he was afraid he wouldn't get up if he sat down.
Yeah, those stools aren't that comfortable. Orlin Norris really coming off of his best round. Back in that third, he was the one that kept the pressure on. He was the one that came on toward the end of the round to build to a crescendo. He landed some good punches.
Now he's trying to jab with Jirov.
Yeah, jabbing southpaw is hard to beat. But if you can steal their jab.
Low blow, that's what Norris is complaining about. I didn't know if Lou Moret was going to react, but then when Norris walked away, he did.
Norris is just vexing. His style is just the way he moves, the way he turns, how he moves. It's hard to hit with a real solid punch. What Jirov wants is somebody just to stand there where I can clock you. Norris is not giving him that. Dangerous fight for Jirov because of that.
In the heyday of the two brothers Norris, they used to train and live in Campo, California, down San Diego way. And they were one of the most formidable brother combinations ever.
Here's a look, that fourth round low blow, and he's been straying a little bit south on his punches, and that's really the second low blow that I counted from Jirov, but he really has to concentrate, focus to bring those punches up. If you get a warning, all of a sudden you start thinking, I need to get my focus back, I need to make those body shots right into the pit of the body, not lower.
Jirov needs to put some impressive wins together. He was unstoppable until he ran into James Toney, and then Toney was the first one that really found the weaknesses and able to exploit him of Jirov.
It really hurt him. He really hurt him too.
Jirov and Norris very close on your card there, Sean. Dead even.
Well, I thought that Norris came back the last couple of rounds, but he has to sustain this attack. And they're close enough to go either way, too. You know, really a slow-paced fight for a couple of heavyweights. But, hey, let's face it, 223 pounds is Jirov today, 213 after breakfast and lunch for Norris.
Jirov said he didn't have much time, as much time to train as he would have liked. Just a little over 2 weeks for this fight, according to Jirov. Let's go into the corner of Orlin Norris, find out what's going on over there. Let's go to Jay Glazer. Jay?
Well, guys, we've been talking about the heat this whole time. Well, Cornelia Boza Everett just told me, he's the trainer for Orlin Norris. He just told me that Norris is not throwing as many punches as he would like because of the heat. It is affecting his game plan. He's telling him you've got to throw 3 punches at a time. He thinks the reason he's not is because of the heat. He's almost holding back a little bit. Back to you.
I think he might have been holding back too, Jay. I think you're absolutely right. And I think, though, he's tried to pick it up just a little bit with each round, though.
I think he has as well. And he knows, he knows his way around the ropes. He knows what he's doing. He's still cognizant of that last fight that he had that we talked about earlier.
With Sosnowski, Albert Sosnowski.
Where he kind of punched himself out in one of the rounds. And he's trying to pace himself and also trying to lure Jirov into a little trap, into a little, run into something. Come on in here, Jirov. Now blowing out air with his punch is Norris. Old-time trainers felt that added a little bit more psychological warfare to their punch. Your opponent gets hit with a shot, he also gets hit with a noise. And if you haven't brushed your teeth in a while, it's even more effective.
I don't ever think I've seen Orlin have the advantage in height and the physical against anybody. He was close to Mike Tyson in height, but Mike was so much broader and bigger anyway,
He can fight a lightweight and he'd be at disadvantage of height.
It seems like it. I guess he's learned how to.
I think you might have.
Sam Solomon getting ready to head into the ring. Sam Solomon, #1 contender in the IBF. He is the mandatory challenger for the new champion, Jermaine Taylor. Although remains to be seen whether Taylor is going to go in that direction. It certainly doesn't seem like it, but that's in the IBF right now. He is #1. He was Hopkins mandatory. In fact, you know that Sam Solomon was the only mandatory that Hopkins did not meet up in his long career as champion in the various categories.
What an exciting division, too. The middleweight division, in my estimation, is the most exciting division in boxing. They have the speed of the lighter weights and the power of the heavyweights.
Now the two trying to still maintain a pace in this heat. Let's take a look here, Sean. You can see it's 105 degrees here. That canvas, actually 107. That's what James Toney was talking about earlier. It feels like you're burning your feet up. 28% humidity, which I guess is reasonable. But,
the heat is not.
The heat is not, and absolutely. I don't care whether it's dry heat or not. It's heat, man, and it is hot in there. And it's tough to fight, and I think it has had an effect on both guys here in that not letting everything go.
Of course it has. Both of them thinking about the run at the end, too.
Jay Glazer's made his way back over to Vassiliy Jirov's corner. Jay?
You guys are exactly right. I'm starting to feel like I work for the Weather Channel. Vassiliy Jirov's trainer also told me that the heat is affecting his guy. He's telling his guy to pick up the pace. I don't want Orlin Norris to be able to have the time to think in there, pick it up, but he says the heat is definitely affecting my guy too.
Well, I'll tell you, to the extent that I think I've never seen Vassiliy Jirov throw fewer punches in a fight, and he's still throwing a lot more than his Orlin Norris.
And I think that benefits Norris, though. I felt like coming into this fight that Jirov could really put the pressure on Norris, really go after him. But he's slowed this pace down to the Norris type of fight. Orlin wants this kind of fight.
Well, let me tell you something. Vassiliy Jirov should be doing more work to the body. Absolutely. He is an hellacious body puncher. There's some work to the body from Jirov. He's an hellacious body puncher. I've seen him knock out on 2 occasions, Sean. I have seen him knock out opponents with 1 punch to the body. I mean, this guy can really crack to the body. And Jirov has been mostly a headhunter in this fight.
Yes, you're right. He has forgotten about the body attack. There's some body work. Now remember, it was back in the early rounds when He landed to the body, but he didn't sustain the attack. Back in that second, I believe it was. Third round, Orlin Norris came back a bit. In the last round, I thought that Jirov came on, and here he comes on again, final seconds.
But a counter right hand by Orlin Norris as we near the end of the round. Here we go, round number 7 of this heavyweight bout between Vassiliy Jirov, who you see in the tiger stripe trunks, and James Lights Out, or James Lights Out Tony, Orlin Norris. I wanted to talk about James Lights Out Tony, who was willing to admit earlier today that Vassiliy Jirov did really crack to the body. And for James to give that kind of grudging respect was definitely really saying something.
For anybody, but I'll tell you something, James really beat a very good fighter that night. Well, James has done that with a lot of fighters. But he really beat a terrific fighter in Jirov when he beat him.
Now we should remind you that this is only an 8-round fight, scheduled for 8. How might that affect the strategy here in the last 2 rounds, Sean?
Well, I've been saying all along, this pace really favors somebody like Orlin Norris, somebody that's tricky and crafty and skillful in there and won't get hit and slips around. It really helps him more. If Jirov were putting more pressure on it, it would hurt Norris. He might be able to stop him, might be able to take him out, so I think it benefits Orlin Norris. Now, I still have the fight extremely close in that each one of these rounds have been very difficult to score. You give credence to one fighter that's putting on pressure, you give credence to one that's blocking shots or one that's punching. Judges looking for clean punches, effective aggressiveness, defense, and ring generalship.
Quick little right hand by Jirov. Now Jirov getting that long right jab of his to work. Where's that been?
Oh, it's a great weapon, but you're right. And it's an offensive jab. There it is.
Again.
Sets up everything.
The thing about Jirov is he doesn't often use that jab enough because he likes to go in and start wheeling away. He likes to throw the combinations. He likes to throw punches and flurries. So he likes to get close enough to his opponent to where he can do that.
Well, he's been trying, you know, we were questioning him this morning, grilling him more or less about his style and about his career and everything else, and he's trying to relax more in his career. He says if you get tense or you get stressed out about how you're going to fight, when you go out there and you got to change, you have to improvise, it really puts a damper on your style.
Of course, he did
not to get so caught up in what he has to do.
He did say when we talked to him, Sean, that I'm going to box him. And we said, why are you going to box him? And he goes, because boxers always win. The smarter guy always wins. So maybe that was a little indication that he was going to maybe change up his style a little here today.
Well, he's changing it up in this round, loosening a bit more. He's throwing better punches.
Jirov's trying to muscle Norris around the ring now. Bell ends round 7, 1 round to go. A man who won the cruiserweight championship at the expense of Vassiliy Jirov, who, by the way, is sitting down now. James Lights Out Tony. James.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, he's Jirov not throwing nearly as many punches as he did against you. Is that a case of the heat, or is he just changing up his style, or what?
Well, I think Jirov, to me, he looks unexpired now. I don't know why it is, because he's not throwing the body shots. He's not throwing the straight left hand, because everything's open for him, but he's not taking advantage of it.
You hear what I'm saying?
What do you think of what Norris is doing out there?
I think Norris could be a little bit more aggressive, but he's kind of hesitant to come in because he's gonna get hit with the big shot. So, either way, we got a little sleeper here.
Hey, James, is Vassiliy Jirov still as good a fighter as he was when he fought you?
I think I took it out of him. Like I said, if you're a young fighter out there, and if you think if you got hope, keep away from me. I do destroy him.
James, does this pace favor either fighter?
Excuse me?
Does this pace favor either fighter?
I can't even hear you. I'm sorry.
The pace favor one guy.
The pace is helping them because they're not going all out. So they conserving energy. They're trying to make it to the last round.
Well, there's nothing to conserve anymore. Thanks, James. We'll check back with you a little bit later on.
You.
And right now, this is it. 8th and final round.
The final round right here.
So the guys can let it go.
Yeah.
If they've got anything to let go.
Right.
Norris a little bit tricky as he came in. He turned left-handed and bent real low. I always think it's a good idea for a short fighter to make himself even shorter at times in the ring.
Not only for that, but also to hide that body, to take your body away from your opponent. Don't give him that target. There you go. Nice work. You know, you got to keep your hands up when you go down like that. Hands up around your face.
I asked Jirov today about hitting a shorter fighter. Is it tough to do when a guy is considerably shorter than you? He said he likes to use the uppercut in that case if he can. He finds it difficult.
That's what you do. That's a good weapon.
Okay, watch those heads. Watch those
the uppercut, and then come back with a hook or an overhand right.
Step back. Step back.
And there it is.
All right, hold it. Hold it. Let him go.
Let him go, says Jim Moret.
You know, James had an interesting comment. He said Jirov just looks kind of uninspired out there.
He does. You know, with fighters, you get up for fights, you get excited about fights, you get scared. Fear is a great motivator. My father, who trained me, used to tell me about what my opponents were going to do to me, and it made me frightened, so I trained harder. Fear is a great motivator, and I think that's what they need in this fight. Jirov says, I have no fear of anybody. He's kind of just floating along, and I'd like to see him get afraid of somebody. I think it'll make him a better fighter. He's fighting this fight like he has complete control, and he's just kind of wandering, meandering about, kind of a perfunctory effort.
Orlin Norris has turned left-handed, and a couple of times in this round he's made it to work to his advantage. It's been a little bit effective with it.
Well, even left-handers don't know how to face a left-hander. They don't see him. Right-handers are more prevalent in the sport. So you can confuse them that way. You know, Orlin Norris still has a lot of skills in the ring. He still does a lot of things great that many fighters don't do.
Right hand by Norris. Came right over the top. Jirov dropped his left, and Norris found the target. That was a good, quick right.
It really is kind of a shame. Good combinations from Norris. And look how Norris, using the sun in his back, he's also bouncing off those ropes, kind of add a little bit more power, no pressure, and he's trying to rest, too. This is good work. I'll tell you, Orlin Norris it's a shame that when you get to be 39 years old, you know all these things, and you can't transpose that over to somebody that's, 20 or 21 years old.
Or that you can't do it for the full 8 rounds.
Exactly.
Because he's doing a nice job in this round.
There.
Yes, he is.
Got a mouthpiece come out, so they'll take a break.
Wash it. No, give it. Just wash it.
Oh, I really want that washed off. It's so dry here. Oh. 2 mouthpieces does not count. You can't put in 2 mouthpieces in one mouth. You got a big mouth, you can carry 2 mouthpieces.
If I was Vassiliy, I would have said, yeah, sure, give it to me. Nice right hand again. He's come over the top twice in this round with the overhand right. Looping right hand. So we will wait for the decision of this one. We're also awaiting, of course, our main event, Fernando Zuniga, and #1 ranked middleweight contender, Sam Solomon. But we still have the decision to get. Jirov and Norris, who won it? We'll find out. Well, it's almost time for Fernando Zuniga to go to work as he gets ready to face Sam Solomon in our main event here, yet to come. But we've just seen an 8-rounder that turned out pretty close. It looked like Jirov may run away with it early, but then...
And then it was a back and forth battle, really. No man really establishing himself in his attack. Norris came on a little bit toward the end of the fight, and it was Jirov who tried to fight back. Back in round 7, Jirov tried to take the lead, but fighting off those ropes in the 8th round was Orlin Norris. Norris used his experience and his skills to at least go the distance. I thought Jirov missed an opportunity for knockout in this fight.
Well, I thought Orlin Norris had a very great 8th round. He came on late. Let's find out if it was enough. Let's go to Jimmy Lennon Jr. for the decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 8 rounds of action, we have a majority decision. Here are the score totals. Judge at ringside, Abe Bellardo, scores the bout 78-74 in favor of Vassiliy Jirov. Judges at ringside, Marshall Walker and Ralph McKnight, both score the bout the same, 76-76, even a draw. The decision is even, a majority draw.
So there it is, a draw. Vassiliy Jirov, a majority draw. 1 vote for Jirov, 2 calling it a draw. Sean, who does that hurt and who does that help?
Dangerous fight for Jirov. You know, there have been people who've been saying that Jirov has seen his better days. Not as good now as he once was, and this really puts him behind the 8 ball. For Norris, maybe somebody will give him a shot now. You know, maybe he works this into his he went the distance and he did pretty good.
All right, we will be back at ringside later with our main event. Right now, we go back to Chris, John, and James. Guys?
All right.